Hey, welcome everybody. We've got a lot to cover today, so thank you for giving up your valuable time to join us on what is, I think, will be a fantastically informative webinar for those of you in the MYOB Xero QuickBooks space, or those of you who have other ERPs and are just looking to potentially move over and upgrade to another system. My name's Graham Bowers. I'm the channel manager here at ezyCollect. I won't be discussing anything really about ezyCollect today. In my time in the ERP space and at ezyCollect, I've come across a lot of people in the MYOB and Xero space who sometimes struggle with the limitations of those systems, but are at a loss as to where to look or where to go to find a better system that better suits their needs. And so at ezyCollect, I deal with a number of key partners in the implementation space, and we've put this webinar series together to really let you just simply see in one place what you can do, what's available in the marketplace, and my recommendations as to the partners that we use and work with consistently, and I have worked with over the last 10 plus years, and have a confidence in their implementation ability, their procedures, and just the ethical nature of the way that they do business. So today we're going to be presenting NetSuite, and joining us today is Dan and Rob. Now, Dan is the Business Development Manager at JCurve Solutions, and Rob is one of the account executives over there. And between the two of them, they'll be able to present not only NetSuite, but answer all your questions. So you can see there's a Q&A box on the webinar bar. Please put any questions in there that you may have. The objective of this webinar is that you get information that you need, and both Dan and Rob will be able to answer all of your questions, and then you'll have a contact at the end for follow-up afterwards as well. So the agenda for today is just what are the signs that you've outgrown Xero, MYOB, maybe QuickBooks, and then Dan and Rob will take you into a session where they'll answer some of these questions, and then they'll do a live demo of NetSuite for you, and then the Q&A. Please put all your questions in the chat box. We'll answer all of them, and we want to ensure that you get a lot of information out of this webinar that enables you to make a sensible have a discussion about your next steps. So Dan, Rob, over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Graham. Really appreciate your introductions there. First, I'll start off with Rob. Rob, tell us a little about yourself and your experience in the industry.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Firstly, it's great to be here with everyone talking through this topic today. I've been working in the ERP and business system space for more years than I care to think about. But look, really, it's about, for me, helping customers to achieve their goals and the outcomes that they're working toward.
Awesome. And a little bit about myself. I've been working with businesses, and mostly on the software side of things, implementing efficiencies and helping businesses grow for the past 7 or 8 years now. So I'm no stranger to this space. So Rob, Graham's done a great introduction here. We're looking at systems like Xero, MYOB, and QuickBooks. What types of challenges do you find companies struggle with when using systems like these?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. The most common story I hear from companies that I work with is how they're so frustrated with the sheer amount of busy work that they do. Yeah, the kind of work that isn't about growing their business. It's not about looking after their customers. It's not about selling more of their products and services. Instead, they're having to navigate in and out of different systems and spreadsheets, trying to answer the simplest of questions. You know, things like, where's that item I ordered? Or do you have one of these items that you can send me today? This invoice doesn't look correct. Can you please sort it out? And invariably, it comes down to having a simplistic finance system that doesn't really understand their customers. It doesn't hold the details of their products, and it doesn't cope with time-based services. And so they've ended up with not just Mile or Xero or QuickBooks, but a collection of different systems that manage different parts of their business, whether it's financials or customer management, maybe it's inventory, that's got services systems or just general operations. And these systems don't really talk to each other very well. And so when they try to report on the business, that reporting gets built on spreadsheets. And ultimately, they end up spending more time running the business systems than running the business.
Now, a lot of the businesses that I work with, or prior to moving to NetSuite, have started with these MYBs and Xeros and QuickBooks and added on all these plugins. And you said they're spending more time running these systems than their business. What do you actually mean by that?
Well, it's the repetitive manual and the mundane activities that just seem to go with the territory of running a business. People go into a business because of a particular passion they might have or an expertise that they have in a given area. They know that they can do that thing better than anyone and even compete with the big guys. But now in the early days of any business, it's crucial to get a foothold in the market that they've chosen. And small business, they do that by being better, faster, more personalized and more responsive to meet their customer needs. And that's the superpower of a small, medium-sized business, because the larger businesses, they're slower, they're less responsive, they're less personalized. And then as they start to grow, however, maintaining that responsive pace with the most basic and disconnected systems gets much more complicated. That's where the manual effort and activity starts to come in. So when there's a basic question that needs to be answered, it can take multiple system logins. It takes lots of phone calls, lots of emails for something that really should just be front and center. And that's not responsive. So when they're buried in all that busy work that doesn't deliver anything of value to their customers, it's easy to see where that frustration comes from. And what they really need is actionable data insights, a way to see what's really happening in their business at any given time. That's just not feasible when you're using multiple different systems, because just compiling all those data sources into a spreadsheet and then manipulating that data into some kind of meaningful reporting, that's a huge task. And that decision that you wanted to make, it's now too late, it's past.
I like how you mentioned there that small businesses, small to medium businesses, they do better by being faster and more personalized, but they're falling into these traps where they're spending all this time trying to actually understand their data through all these different systems. How do they fall into this trap, and what cost does it ultimately have on their business?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. It makes sense that in the earlier days of starting up a business, you probably invested a bit of early capital into a small finance system, because you've got to pay bills and you've got to collect your incoming revenue. And if you're a product-based business, you might then have signed up for a system to manage your inventory and your stock, so you know what you've got available to sell and you don't overcommit on delivering products to your customers. If you offer services to your customers, you could then have purchased some license to a project management system like a Monday.com or something like that to keep track of your service delivery against your promised service levels. And then when sales started to pick up, you might then have hired a salesperson and then started to grow the team a bit further. And so you found you needed a customer management system or a CRM to better service your customers and to support your sales efforts. And of course, you've got a website, but given you also sell online, you then need an e-commerce platform like a Shopify or a WooCommerce or such. Oh, and then you've got to pick up a payroll system too.
See, if I'm counting right, that's 1, 2, let's give 5 different systems to manage your business at the moment. It sounds a bit archaic.
Yeah, potentially even more than that. And that's absolutely correct. Because now you're trapped in this mess of systems that doesn't help you as a business and it doesn't help your customers. And it's costing more than you ever imagined. Firstly, in terms of real dollars, now we're talking about cost, because each system on its own might not be a huge cost, but collectively, you're now paying upwards of $30,000, $40,000 a year in many cases. The other crucial aspect of cost is time. And time's not a luxury that small and medium businesses can afford. If someone's even spending 1 hour a day simply chasing things down, then that alone is 10% of every day. And you know as well as I do, people are spending more than 1 hour chasing things. And that's before you even try to start getting meaningful reporting. And there goes another 10%. So time is somewhat more of a hidden cost aspect of cost. But if you stop to think about just how much effort goes into those things and others, it's truly mind-boggling.
I like how you've broken it down by just not only real dollars, but also time. Time is actually some of the things that I see on a lot of customers are facing. They've actually had to hire more people to handle these tasks, what could usually be done in a single solution. Now, how do they avoid this scenario that you've just described?
Yeah, well, people generally know there are big systems out there that they might one day need, and they might need to get into, maybe once they feel the business can afford it. What they often don't know is that they can start with one of the biggest systems. In this case, JCurve NetSuite, at a significantly smaller entry point than they might expect. You see, JCurve gives businesses the opportunity to start a business with financials, with sales and customer management, with inventory and service management, including the reporting and analytics, all in one system. What that means is that they can achieve a fully triangulated view of customers, products, and financials. So if you imagine looking at a customer record and knowing their buying history by products, along with any special pricing terms you might have agreed, and also being able to see easily the financial perspective in terms of profitability across product lines, payment status, or any other financial metric you might want to see. And then having a similar view from a product perspective. What does the seasonality for buying or selling look like? Do we have enough inventory to meet customer needs? What if our price or sell price changes? So businesses can avoid that trap simply by starting out on a platform that covers those key business areas and the reporting and dashboarding that can really drive the business forward.
Now, you mentioned it being NetSuite. People hear NetSuite and they think, oh, there's $3 signs attached to that. You know, what does a significantly smaller point of entry look like?
Yeah, I like that question. Look, at JCurve, we have an exclusive agreement that lets our customers get onto the NetSuite platform, in some cases at under 10,000 annually. So it's not just for large and enterprise customers. Of course, it depends largely on the makeup of your particular environment and how many user licenses you need and all those sorts of things. But the point is you can start out really small from a single user and grow the business right through to being a publicly listed international behemoth of a company. And JCurve is the only NetSuite partner that has access to this early entry point. As a case in point, the picture you're showing on screen at the moment is a perfect example of that. I don't remember this guy's name. He's one of the warehouse guys from Feel Good Food. They're a small family business that wholesales artisan and healthy foods to the cafe and restaurant market. I was speaking to the CEO, George, just last week. He's been a customer for quite a few years now. He still raves about being able to see everything he needs right from a dashboard, and how his team are no longer constantly having to jump from the phones to chase things down. And that was happening because they were using QuickBooks. Now he's gone from a basic accounting cash book to an all-inclusive system. He's providing customer-facing Salesforce automation. He's got quotes and orders. He's got marketing and customer service capability. He's integrated his back office inventory management. He's got fulfillment, logistics, accounting, all in a single system. He calls it big software for small business.
I really like some of the points that you've made, you know, especially around not just the real dollars that are associated with having 5 or 6 systems, but the time saving. Time is really what's crucial to small and medium businesses. There never seems to be enough hours in the day. Look, I'm going to be jumping into a demonstration now and appreciate your time. If there are any questions throughout the demonstration, please put them through and I'll ask Rob to field those to me as we get through to that.
Thanks, Dan.
So I'll just share my screen. And let me know when you can see that. Perfect. Great. So let's start with NetSuite. NetSuite is a true cloud ERP, meaning it was built in the cloud. You can access NetSuite from anywhere, anytime, on any device, as long as you've got access to the internet. Just going to put in my login credentials and I'm going to start with my home page. Now, it is permission driven, which is great. So as a financial controller, I'm going to have access to information that is pertainable to me. for example, my bank balance. I don't want everyone to see my bank balance. So, for example, if I was an inventory manager or a purchasing manager or a sales manager, I'm only going to see what pertains to me. Now, a lot of the customers that I speak to that might be using Xero or QuickBooks are managing multiple businesses at the moment, and they're going to have to log in and out of each business to get across what's happening in each of these businesses. NetSuite has the ability to consolidate all of that into one solution. You can see that I'm working from a parent company view, but say, for example, I was to click on subsidiary number 2, my reminders, my KPIs, my dashboards are all going to update so that I'm only seeing what pertains to that particular business. So my bank balance has dropped for this particular subsidiary down to 220,000. Great way to save time to Rob's point earlier. That 10% that you would be doing running around reports and pulling information from different systems is now consolidated into one solution. Number of ways to really get insights into how my business is doing. What I have to do for the day is my reminders portal. All in real time. I can see that I've got purchase orders to approve. I've got 58 invoices that are overdue. Hopefully they've got ezyCollect at the bottom of those and you get those paid sooner. But again, these are completely personalizable to really drive actionable results and drive my business's growth. Now, Rob mentioned earlier that while we're pulling information out of these multiple 5 or 6 systems to get actionable data, and actionable data is the key here. We've got my KPIs and indicators, completely personalizable, some graphs that are all drillable, comparable data as well. And me, I'm not sure about you guys, but I'm a visual person. And I want to see a graphical representation of how my sales are doing. Say, for example, I want to see my monthly sales here. And I've got this month versus my moving average as well. And this is not just across my sales. This is payables, expenses, inventory. And as I change roles, these KPIs and indicators are going to change with me depending on what role I take in within the business. Now, NetSuite started off as a fully fledged accounting system before developing into an ERP. So it's actually quite a funny story. Xero uses NetSuite to run their business here in Australia. So rest assured, we can meet all of those requirements. Now, a lot of people are curious to see what does the reporting feature look like within NetSuite. Here, I've just opened up within one click an income statement. I'm able to personalize this on a number of different dates or specific periods to actually get better insights into my income statement. I can segment this data, for example, by classes, and classes are essentially used as profit centers within NetSuite. A business that I was speaking to earlier this week on Monday, similar to Feel Good Foods, they deliver to restaurants and cafes. They're using this classes to do perishable goods, my packaging, my long life goods as well. So really seeing a great way to identify how my profit centers are doing across the board. I can also do this by locations. If I'm running multiple locations as well, I can see how my locations are doing across my different, my income statement as well. Now, out of the box, NetSuite comes with 300 pre-built reports, and I can further customize these or personalize these in any way. And because I have not only my financial data in here, but also my inventory and my customer data, I can report across those rather than pulling that information from multiple areas. Jumping back to my financial overview here. Now, a question I get quite often, Rob, is how am I easily able to identify, what are my fastest moving items at the moment? You can see I've actually pre-built a top 10 items by sales. Because this information is tied in with my inventory and my financials, I can quickly identify, okay, my brocade extension switch accounts for almost 35% of my business sales. So what would typically take me jumping into multiple systems is accessible within a one click of the button.
Jane, what if I was leading a business, I wanted to see something like my top customers so I could make sure they're being looked after?
Yep. So I've actually got another dashboard pre-built here to show you my top 10 customers by sales. And funnily enough, one contributes to 21% of my business. So what could my salespeople do with this type of information? I know that Black Dragon contributes to over 20% of my business. I might want to show them extra care. There are a number of other dashboards here I've got on my homepage as a financial controller. I can see I've got my sales, COGS, and expenses. And with a moving average, I can change the way that I view this data in a number of ways. So rather than exporting all that information from 3 to 4 different systems, I'm able to see it right out of the bat with NetSuite in a visual representation as well. Now, Rob's spoken about the number of systems that businesses use at the moment. This is a wholesale distribution, so I'm going to want to have a look at my customers, my CRM, some forecasting, and inventory as well. So I'm going to show you how quickly and easy it is to navigate to these specific areas within NetSuite. I'm just going to type in Black Dragon that we spoke about earlier. You can see here I've got Black Dragon, and I'm going to open up a dashboard, and I'm also going to open up their customer record. We mentioned inventory items as well, so I'm going to open up a inventory item called the MacBook. Oops, no, it's the touch bar. Apologies. And there it is. So rather than navigate across multiple systems to get access to this information, I am able to see it all within one single solution, saving me time, giving power back to your staff to make real actionable business decisions to grow that business. Now, I've pulled up my customer dashboard. I don't know about you, but whenever I get on the phone with, say, my phone provider and I've had an issue, I probably call them about 3-4 times over the course of a 2-week period. And I spend the first 5 minutes of that phone call trying to re-explain what the issue is and where we are in that conversation. Imagine being able to pull up a customer dashboard that tells you everything about your customer in a snapshot. You can see here on the left-hand side, I've got all my general information, where they are, who's the sales rep, websites, etc. Any KPIs I want to track for this specific customer. I've got comparable data again, this month versus last month. Is there any forecast for this particular customer? Are there any overdue invoices for this customer? What are the top 5 items by sales for this particular customer? Actionable insights into this customer is really going to help me build that relationship. Rob said earlier, small to medium businesses are faster and more personable. And this is a great way of doing that rather than trying to get this information across 5 to 6 different solutions. You can see here I've got all my transactions. So as I've got my CRM and my financials and my inventory all tied together, I can see all this information on one screen. And lastly, activities. As there is a CRM within NetSuite, I can see, all right, my last phone call was on the 19th of February. As this customer contributes to 20% of my business, I might want to put in a fortnightly call to them, for example. So again, a quick snapshot of what this customer means to my business. So I'm just closing out of that now. So rather than jumping to a different system, I've just closed that tab. It's a great way of navigating around this solution. I've got my customer record here. Everything that you see here is essentially just a form, so we can add, remove any information that you want. So try and keep an open mind there. But you can see here I've got my sales. I've got my transactions. I can easily identify all the items that this customer has purchased because, again, I do have all that information, the different departments tied into the single solution. I can see a sales team, for example, if I've got an associated sales rep, Will Clark. And if I'm doing forecasting for this particular business, I can see any opportunities I have, the opportunity status, and the totals and probabilities. Now, one of my favorite features about the customer record, but also the inventory record, is what we call Customer 360. And Rob, you said something earlier that it was really great why we like the Customer 360.
Oh, look, for me, the ability to see everything that I want to know about a customer in one place, the ability, I think the word I used was triangulate, the ability to triangulate the financial view of a customer, the sales view of a customer, and the inventory view of a customer. How, what are the things that they've ordered? What's on back order? How do I know what I need to have at which warehouse, or how do I need to move things around? When a customer calls in and asks me a question, I've got everything I need to know right then and there. And that's that responsiveness that I talked about.
And when I'm speaking to business owners and CEOs and such, when you have such a large customer, being on the ball is key. So if your CEO comes to your sales reps and says, hey, what is happening with this customer? They've called me up and there's a problem with this order, or they're waiting on this delivery and such. With this customer 360, I can easily see any open sales orders I might have, any open invoices and credits. What are the top sold items, 12-month of sales, items returned, etc.? What does this customer mean to my business, and where am I going to get this information? So rather than going to Xero to see if this bill has been paid or this item's been fulfilled, I'm able to see all this information on one screen. Let's take sales order 554. They've called up asking for it. It's actually pending fulfillment. So it's still in the warehouse and hasn't been shipped. What might have taken you 30 minutes to figure out, I've been able to figure out in a number of seconds.
Yeah, see, Dan, this is the stuff, this is the exact type of stuff that I was talking about when I said, the time that takes to do busy work. If you add all these things up over the course of any given day, you'd spend at least an hour, if not more, just chasing down those things. One single phone call can result in an hour's worth of work or more just trying to get an answer. But having it all here in one place, that's where the difference is.
Awesome. Now, another solution that you mentioned earlier is that CRM piece. Most customers might be using a Salesforce. This is a very popular one. An expensive solution. It's great at what it does. But again, if we're trying to consolidate all of this information into one solution, NetSuite's got you covered. You can see here, I've got my activities. So I'm able to have that CRM task. God forbid Rob gets hit by a bus tomorrow, someone can come in and fill his shoes and see exactly where he was up to with Black Dragon. I can set new tasks for the future, log tasks for the things that I've done today. And if I've taken a phone call on behalf of Rob, I can assign it to him and he'll get notified as well. So again, bringing in all those information, all those systems into one solution, giving you a holistic view of this business as this customer to my business. Now I've looked at the customer record. Let's have a look at an inventory record. You can see I've got my MacBook, my touch bar. Again, this is essentially just a form I can add, remove. I can pull it in images. And if I've got an e-commerce site like Shopify and the WooCommerce, I can integrate into that too. So orders are flowing straight through. But some of the things I wanted to touch on here is purchasing an inventory. How quickly is it for you to figure out what's my purchase price? What's my last purchase price? What's my average cost across, say, 6 months or so? Am I tracking my landed cost at the moment, really giving me a true cost of good for this particular item? How am I managing my replenishment at the moment? Are we still using Ray out the back counting stock? Have we still using the early 2000s methods of min and max? Or are we moving forward with technology and using what we call dynamic inventory replenishment, which allows the system to use, say, your previous sales history to dictate how much inventory you have on hand. So you're not overstocked or understocked. Systems like NetSuite have the ability to auto-calculate your reorder point. If I'm purchasing in NetSuite and I'm receiving in NetSuite, it can auto-calculate your lead times and your preferred stock levels. Do I have seasonal demand so I'm not overstocked in my down periods and understocked in my high periods? This type of information is really going to drastically give time back to your staff to make further the business growth. Next, sales and pricing. The business I spoke to earlier on Monday. Again, one of their biggest pet peeves with their current system is that it doesn't allow them to do cost plus when it comes to pricing levels. It's only list minus. NetSuite has the ability to do both. Rob, you're a great guy. I might give you 10% off. So there's my 10% discount pricing level. I'm a bit of a pain in the ass to deal with. You might charge me 10% more, or the online price is 2% more. So I have the ability to manage all of that on one record here. And again, my quantity breaks as well. So I can handle as many of those as I need to. Now, similar to the customer 360, I have a item 360. One of the biggest challenges I have when speaking to businesses say they have is, am I making any money on this product? Is it worth me keeping around? And they have to go through hours of manipulating spreadsheets to get these insights. You can see here on my item 360, I have my sales margin tab. I am within 2 clicks able to figure out what my margin is on this particular product. This business, they sell milk, and as you can imagine, milk fluctuates all the time. So over a 6-month period, what's my average margin for this particular product? You can see here I've got my average cost, my average sale price. I'm easily able to identify that my margin for this particular product. Similarly, 3-way match. If I've ordered 100 of this particular item, and my system shows that I've got 100 in stock, but in reality I've got 50 on back order, how long does it take me to actually figure that out at the moment? Do I again have Ray out the back counting and trying to find the stock in the warehouse? So again, getting this information to you at your fingertips with a couple of clicks is going to save you time, and time costs money. Lastly, I want to touch on was the open sales orders. Do I have any open sales orders for this particular item? Do I have what's my historical item of sales for this particular item? So easily be able to see, all right, I've sold 6 in January, 11 in February, 10 in March. How long does it take me to get this information out of my multiple systems at the moment? Now, Rob, you've touched on earlier reporting. And getting reports out of my systems at the moment tends to be a nightmare because I have to consolidate 3 to 4 different systems into one Excel spreadsheet and then manipulate it to get any data insights. As I mentioned earlier, NetSuite has 300 pre-built reports out of the box. Now, Rob, you speak to a lot of business owners at the moment. What kind of reports do they typically look for?
Look, the reports that they really want are the things that tell them something about the business. And again, if someone's going to make a decision about whether to keep an item in their inventory or to hold that and sell that, then they want to be able to get to that really quickly.
So a profitability report?
Yep, that's a great example.
Boom. Out of the box, I've got my inventory profitability. You can see here, I've got my quantity sold, cost, revenue, my gross profit percentage.
Right.
So that would save hours getting this information because I'm able to see what have I purchased it at, what have I sold it at, and then all my financials are tied into that. What's another report?
You know what? What drives the revenue in my business is my sales. So I would like to see I'd like to see something around. You mentioned forecasting around items, but tell me about forecasting from a sales perspective. How do I know what my sales guys are doing?
I can see a forecast of, say, for example, my sales reps. Oops, here we go. By sales rep, by customer, by item, and hoping that your sales reps are putting in the necessary CRM tasks to keep that all up to date, but I can see this information. So say if I do it by sales rep, for example, or even by customer, I'll open both of them for you. Give that a second to load up. Let's do it by customer. You can see here I've got my forecast by all my customers. This is the forecast amount and the weighted value of that. So say, for example, it's a new opportunity and I've only added 50%, my weighted average would be here as well. And this is for this month total, but I can manipulate this further to look into the future. So say, for example, I wanted to look at this for the rest of the financial year. Click on refresh. Give that a second to load up. And now I've got that information here at my fingertips. So rather than going around and pestering my sales reps, I can access this information right from the system and not having to jump from, say, my Xero to my Sin7 to Salesforce to get this information as well. Similarly, my forecast by my sales rep. I've got a number of sales reps here. This is my categories here. I've got most likely and my weighted averages as well. So for the month of March, we're hoping to close almost 900,000. It's a bit steep.
That's what I was looking for, Dan. Hey, the other thing I'll just ask quickly is, I saw you talk about 300 reports. I saw you navigating some menus there. How do I not get lost in all of that menu, and how do I get access to those reports really easily?
So on my homepage, I actually have the ability to draw them into my homepage. So it's the first thing I see when I walk in. So if I was to click on personalize, for example, I can bring in any reports, my KPI meters, and these searches, because these dashboards here are essentially just those reports sitting in the background, but on a visual representation.
Okay, great, because that's what I want. I want things at my fingertips. I don't have to go looking for.
Exactly. And NetSuite has sticky memory. So if I pulled this sales trend off to the side here, and I've got my sales and margin report here, it will remember that the next time you log in.
Perfect. Thanks.
One report that I did want to pull up that a lot of customers do like to have a look at is my customer profitability. Is this customer worthwhile keeping on? They're spending only a small amount of money and I'm not making much of a margin. Do I want to keep them on? So you can see a Black Dragon, it cost me $38,000 for the goods that I purchased, but I'm selling at $174, therefore my profit is $135. I want to keep this customer happy as much as I can. Also to that, my reports in NetSuite, I can actually schedule them as well. So I have my business owner, they want to see what are my forecasts for the next month. I can schedule this report and send it to them on a monthly or weekly basis and set and forget, again, giving me time back in my day. But that's all I really wanted to cover today from a demonstration point of view. I might open it up to questions at this stage.
We've got a question in the chat there from Calvin. He's asking how are landed costs for inventory calculated in the system if they're imported?
So what we do when we're calculating landed costs is take all the freights and levies charges that you would have for that particular item and add them to the purchase order, therefore increasing your total cost of goods there. Now, this could be a weighted or volume base, any levies that you might have as well. We have a number of different classifications that you can add those charges to. Hope that answers your question.
Thanks for that question, Calvin. I think the other aspect there would be that NetSuite has an import tool. So if you are importing data from another system, you can either directly integrate that or you can import the data as needed, as long as you can get it out of the source system. There's another question from Ian. Can you have an assembly inventory item?
Yes, definitely can. So you can have assemblies, bill of materials, work orders. It really depends on how complex the assembly is. But yes, we can handle that from a fully functioning manufacturing point of view.
And thanks for that question, Ian. If there are other questions, just pop them in the Q&A or the chat.
Mm-hmm. One question I get quite often is, how long does this take to implement? You think an ERP of the size of NetSuite, it's going to take me months and months and months and to implement. That's not necessarily true. I've had businesses here, they were a services-based business. Let's take a wholesale distribution because we're getting inventory questions. They were cleaning. They sold cleaning supplies. We had them up and running in a matter of weeks. Obviously depends on the complexity of your business, but again, we can get you live as quickly as possible.
Right. A couple of other questions have just come in, and apologies if I pronounce your name wrong, but there's a question from Oase. Do you have landed costs function in the item 360 function?
So let me just pull up that inventory record again, taskbar. So this item 360 feature that we showed up earlier is completely personalizable. So we can add in your landed cost into this feature here. But if we recall, if we're doing our landed costs here, it's going to give me that total cost of good. But yes, to your question earlier, we can have a landed cost into this.
Okay, so the system understands landed cost and knows how
Correct.
to treat that. Okay.
Because it's being calculated in the system, we're simply just adding in that menu bar there.
Right. Follow-up question from Ian. Thank you, Ian. If the salesperson differs from the default, does this get added to individual invoices?
Could you elaborate that on, Ian? So I'll pull up the customer again, Black Dragon.
I'm going to take a stab at answering that one myself. Ian, if you want to add some context to that question, then please feel free to put that in the chat. I think everyone has their own unique login to NetSuite. And so the person who sells that can be the person who populates on the invoice. That's all configurable. You can have that set to a default name or person if you like. But if you've got a number of different salespeople selling into the same customer, then that person can be added to the invoice. A question from Ian as well. So for reporting, how does it show the variance?
Which variance? It's a bit vague on that one. So again, a lot of these reports are configurable. So
Ian was asking about assembly and inventory items. So I'm going to guess that that's around inventory variance, maybe around cost.
So that's probably a deeper question at this stage. I might want to get in a solution architect to go into that a little bit further. But Ian, what I'll do is I'll put up my contact details up at the end, and we can jump into that a little bit further.
Steve has asked a question around the mobile app for sales reps. How functional is the mobile app for on-road sales reps, customer overview, inventory levels, pricing? I might take that one if that's okay, Dan, because as a sales rep for many years, I've used that myself. You're always going to be challenged on a mobile by screen real estate, but it's available in NetSuite on the desktop. You can publish to a mobile rendered app that's free to download for any user of the system. I think I've always defaulted to the desktop, whether it's on a tablet or a laptop, because I find there's just a lot more there that I can see in one place. With a mobile, of course, it's a lot smaller, and so you end up having to navigate a little bit more. But the mobile app, for something that, if you're just about to go and see a customer, you pull up the customer record. Again, you can see their financials, their inventory, their support cases, all those sort of things you might want to know before you walk in the front door. That's all right there for you. So it is very functional and very time tested as well.
Yep. So I've just jumped to a sales role, for example, and this is pre-built. You can personalize this in any way, but anything that you see here, because it is a cloud-based solution, you can access it on your phone as well.
So one final question I can see there from Calvin. For order processing, say all customers have customized prices for their products. Can NetSuite system automatically put in the customized pricing when we create the order?
Yes, that's exactly right. So this is probably a question that we'd probably like to dive into a little bit further. What I would suggest is I'm happy to reach out after this meeting and go into that and demonstrate that in another session.
Great. There are some great questions coming in. Another one about multi-currency. Yes, NetSuite is fully multi-currency compliant.
Yep. So that is correct. So we plug into the foreign exchange. So we have the ability to take the foreign currency at 12 a.m. or you can set it a custom rate for a fixed period of time.
Right. All right. I do hope I've caught all the questions. There's a question from Cameron about rental contracts for a rental business. Now, we have a number of customers who are in the rental space. That often depends on how you're doing it. The answer is always yes, that can be done. It might be worth pointing out that a key feature of NetSuite is the Suite App site, which is similar to your app store for your phone, whatever particular device you're on. Beyond the standard functionality in NetSuite, there are thousands of partners around the world who have extended the capability of NetSuite on platform to do things like very detailed rental contracts or hiring capability. And Dan's just showing some of that there. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of these. And most of those are built on platform. So where it's not in the standard delivered NetSuite, you're likely to be able to configure something. You can also customize something or build that, but you'll probably find that someone else has already thought about that and probably built that. And there are literally thousands of examples of that. One of them that I've worked with recently was in the space of Google Maps coming into NetSuite, just as a simple example. But yes, I've seen some of those for the hiring and the rental business, whether it's leasing or lessor side of the business. And we have customers who do some of those things as well. Thanks, Cameron. We'll take a couple of final questions as we start to wrap up. Do the emails from the sales team sync to NetSuite's CRM? Only saw phone or similar activities logged in your demo. Yeah, that's correct. So there are ways to connect your Outlook or your email into NetSuite, and so that and this is something I use regularly, because often a lot of the work you do is actually from your email. There's a couple of ways. If you originate an email from NetSuite, then all the replies and the follow-ups will automatically come straight into NetSuite. If you're going to operate directly from your Outlook or your Google Mail, then you can synchronize that with and have all those activities and emails and tasks logged into the NetSuite against that customer account as well.
That's correct. Yeah. So that has a little invisible script that if you were to send, because NetSuite has its own email marketing engine, you can send emails from here. So it has a little invisible script. So any responses to that automatically gets synced up. But yes, there are alternative options.
Another question around APIs. Open APIs available to integrate with third-party WMS. That's correct. NetSuite does have its own WMS capability natively. So the default would be go down that path first, so you don't have to integrate. But if you've got a particular reason to use a third-party WMS, NetSuite has very open APIs, again, tested and proven over many years now, and available freely. I think you can actually Google NetSuite APIs and have that information available to you.
Right.
Okay, so for any last questions, we should probably wrap it up there, Dan.
Yeah. I'm just going to share our details on the screen. So should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Let me know when you can see that. There we go.
Let's just come up there. Yeah, thanks, Dan. I guess one of the key things is ERP is a very big area. Any one of the areas we talked about on its own can be a day worth of chatting through, if not more. So if this has sparked any particular interest or thought or question in your mind, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to take you through that and explore what might work best for you.
Yeah, awesome. Back to you, GB.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Rob. And thank you for all the very, very great questions at the end. Sometimes with webinars, you sit there in stony silence at the end, but I guess it just goes to show the depth of what Dan and Rob have shown you, that it sparked a lot of interest and questions. Look, I've been in the ERP space for a long, long time, and I've used MyOb and I've used Xero and I've used a lot of ERP systems. And I think what you find here when you see this is not only the time saving, but all the extra information and the ease of process and the ability to run your business from a single dashboard screen that drills down into everything that you could possibly imagine, from the built-in reports to the ability to generate your own reports and get out of that spreadsheet hell and just have information at your fingertips. And I think if you are looking at moving into an ERP system and considering NetSuite, with JCurve, the entry level can not be as prohibitive as you may think it is. The implementation time is not as great as you may think it is, and the benefits that you will get to your business, I think, it's a quantum in terms of how much more you get out of an ERP than you would get out of a MyOb or a QuickBooks or a Xero, which are fundamentally just simple systems, and they do the job for when you're first starting out as a smaller business. But when you get more complexity and you actually want to get a handle on what you're doing, then ERP is the way to go. So thank you so much for your time today. I really do appreciate you coming, and I hope that you've got what you need out of it, and we'll see you at the next webinar series, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, everyone.